I cried when my mother-in-law gave me a cake frosted with "You'll never be enough" at my promotion party, and now she's sending me $3,200 worth of gifts because my boss said, "We don't tolerate this here. I just need some advice." My mother-in-law, Vivian, gave me a cake at my promotion party, but it wasn't just any cake, it had the words "You'll never be enough" written on it. I was devastated, especially since I've worked so hard for this promotion. Lucas, my husband, was furious, and after an argument, my boss found out about the situation. He made it clear that kind of behavior wouldn't be tolerated, and now Vivian is sending me a bunch of expensive gifts to make up for it. I'm torn about what to do, because I don't want to seem like I'm just after gifts, but at the same time, I'm still reeling from what she did. I just don't know how to handle this situation. I'm feeling stuck. Let me take you back to how this all unfolded. I guess it all started with the promotion. I'd been working at Synergy Tech for a few years, and for the longest time I had nothing but my work to keep me going. I loved it. It was the kind of job where you get out what you put in, and I was giving it my all. So when I found out I was getting promoted to senior project manager, I was beyond excited. It was a big deal to me. I told Lucas right away, of course, and he was thrilled too. It was something we both knew I'd worked really hard for. He's always been supportive, and I know he's proud of me, even if sometimes he doesn't quite understand the long hours I put in. Vivian, on the other hand, was a bit of a wild card in the equation. She wasn't overtly hostile, but I could always feel that there was something about me she didn't fully approve of. I was never enough in her eyes. And I knew it. I wasn't the woman she'd imagined her son marrying. I wasn't rich enough, not well connected enough, and maybe, just maybe, I wasn't even good enough to be her daughter-in-law. But I let it slide because, well, she's family, right? Fast forward to the night of the party. We had planned a small celebration at our apartment with a few friends, some family, and a couple of colleagues. I had invited Vivian, of course. I didn't want to make a scene, but I also knew that it would mean something to Lucas if she came. She was, after all, his mom. When I walked into the room, there was a table spread with food, and in the center was a large, beautifully decorated cake. It looked too good to be true. I smiled, thinking maybe, just maybe, she was trying to warm up to me. She had even made the cake herself, which was unusual. Typically, she'd show up with store-bought things or offer to help clean up after. But as soon as I got closer, I froze. The cake had bold, cursive writing across the top, and I couldn't quite read it at first. My heart started pounding in my chest. The letters were a deep red, almost like blood. As I read it, the words sank into my mind with a chill I could feel all the way down to my bones. "You'll never be enough." At first, I thought I was seeing things. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, or maybe it was some sort of sick joke that I didn't get. But no. The words were there, clear as day. And it felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I stood there, frozen in place, while everyone else in the room carried on talking, laughing, sipping their drinks. No one else noticed yet. I looked around, my face burning with a mix of embarrassment and anger. Vivian was standing off to the side, her arms crossed, watching me like she was waiting for me to do something. But I couldn't do anything. I couldn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. It felt like my body wasn't mine anymore. I wanted to scream, to run away, to rip that cake apart. But I stayed still, standing in the middle of the room like a statue. I wanted to disappear. I excused myself quietly and retreated to the bathroom. I leaned against the sink, staring at my reflection. The tears came then. I didn't want to cry in front of anyone, especially not in front of Lucas. But the words on that cake? They hit me harder than I was prepared for. I had worked so hard to prove myself at work, to show my worth, to be someone better. And now, my mother-in-law was telling me I'd never be enough? It stung. I took deep breaths, trying to regain my composure. There was no way I was going to let her ruin my night completely. So, I wiped my tears, splashed my face with cold water, and returned to the party. I didn't mention it to Lucas at first. I didn't want to ruin his mood. But as the night went on, I couldn't ignore how heavy the air felt. The cake was still sitting there, staring at me, as though mocking my every attempt at a good time. When the party started winding down, I finally found the courage to confront her. I walked into the kitchen, where she was putting away the leftovers. "Vivian," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What was that?" "The cake." "Why would you do that?" She didn't turn around at first. She just kept moving the plates around. I wasn't sure if she was ignoring me or just pretending she didn't hear me, but I didn't give up. "Vivian," I said again, this time a little louder. "What was the point of that cake?" The message was cruel. Finally, she turned to face me. Her eyes flickered over my face, and I saw the faintest smirk play on her lips. It wasn't a happy smirk. It was one of those expressions that told you someone knew something you didn't. "Oh, come on, Riley," she said in her clipped tone. "It was just a joke." "A joke?" My voice cracked, and I couldn't keep the tears from building in my eyes. "You don't do something like that as a joke. You can't just say things like that and expect me to laugh." "I was just trying to make sure you understood your place," she said, shrugging. "You'll never be enough for Lucas. You can't be everything he needs. And you'll always come second to me. That's just the way it is." The room seemed to spin as her words cut through me like a knife. My hand started shaking. I couldn't even think straight. Just then, Lucas walked into the room, his eyes searching between the two of us. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice more serious than I'd ever heard it. "She was being dramatic," Vivian said coolly, glancing at me before looking back at her son. "She didn't take the joke well." Lucas's expression hardened. His shoulders tensed. "Mom," he said slowly, "that wasn't funny. That wasn't a joke. And you know it." Vivian was taken aback by his tone, but she didn't back down. She crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow, challenging him. "Oh? So now you're going to defend her over your own mother?" "Enough." Lucas's voice was calm but firm. He looked at me, and the way he held my gaze made me feel like everything might be okay. "We're leaving. I'm done." And just like that, he walked over to me, took my hand, and led me out of the kitchen. I had never seen Lucas stand up to his mom like that before, and honestly, it felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But it didn't make what Vivian did any less painful. The next day, things were still tense between us. I didn't expect an apology from Vivian. She wasn't the type to apologize. But then, something unexpected happened. I was sitting at my desk at work when I received an email from Lucas. "Mom called," he wrote. "She's sorry. She really is. She says she was out of line and wants to make it up to you. I don't know what she's thinking, but she's sending you something. She doesn't want you to think she doesn't care about you." I had no idea what to make of it. But a few days later, a huge package arrived at our door. Inside were several expensive gifts, designer bags, jewelry, and a few things I knew I could never afford on my own. I stared at the items, confused. I didn't know what to do with them. Was this her way of apologizing? Was it just another attempt to control me? I didn't want the gifts, honestly. They felt like a bribe. But what could I do? Return them? Keep them? They were expensive, and I didn't want to seem ungrateful. But I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive her, not completely. That's when Lucas's boss, Jared, pulled me aside at a work event. "Riley," he said softly, "I heard what happened. I just want you to know we don't tolerate that kind of behavior here. If you ever need support, you can count on me. You've earned your place here, and no one should treat you like that. Hearing that from Jared meant the world to me. I didn't realize how much I needed validation from someone outside of my family. As for Vivian, she kept sending me gifts, trying to make up for her mistake. But I realized that the gifts weren't the apology I needed. What mattered was standing up for myself, and for the first time, Lucas was standing with me, too. The gifts continued to arrive. At first, it felt surreal, every day another package from Vivian, each more expensive than the last. Designer clothes, luxury accessories, even a full spa gift certificate for a weekend getaway. I knew she was trying to buy my forgiveness, but I couldn't help but feel repulsed by the entire situation. Was this her idea of an apology? Just throw money at the problem and hope it went away? I didn't want her expensive trinkets. I didn't need them. The irony of it all hit me. Here she was, spending thousands of dollars on things I didn't even want, while I just wanted one thing from her: respect. If I had to pick, I'd rather have had a heartfelt apology from her, not designer handbags and jewelry I would never wear. I spoke to Lucas about it, and he agreed. But he was in an awkward position. "She's trying, Riley," he said one evening as we were sitting on the couch, going over the pile of packages. "It's her way of saying sorry, even if it's weird." I nodded, feeling conflicted. "It's not the kind of apology I need, Lucas. I just don't know what to do with all this stuff. It's like, she thinks that if she gives me enough, I'll forget everything she said to me." Lucas sighed and ran his hand through his hair. "I get it. I do. But you need to understand, she's not like you. She doesn't express emotions the way you do. To her, this is how she makes things right." I wasn't sure I bought that. I knew Vivian well enough to know that she rarely, if ever, had genuine emotional conversations. Everything with her was transactional. But I didn't want to argue anymore. I didn't want to be the one who always stirred the pot. But despite everything, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. There was something about this that didn't sit right with me. Was I supposed to just pretend everything was fine because she was giving me gifts? Was I supposed to accept the apology in the form of luxury items instead of true remorse? For Vivian to truly change. Tired of letting her control everything through passive aggression and these incessant gifts. "I don't need her gifts, Lucas," I said quietly. "And I don't think she gets that. She thinks that if she buys my forgiveness, I'll just forget about what happened. But she can't do that. She's treating me like I'm some prize to be won." He was quiet for a moment, and I could tell he was torn. "She's just not like you. She doesn't know how to say sorry the way you want her to. I'm not saying it's right, but it's all she knows," I finished for him. "Yeah. I know. And I've had enough." It was in that moment that I realized that I couldn't keep waiting around for Vivian to change, for her to get it. I had to take control. I couldn't keep sitting by passively, letting her manipulate me into accepting what she thought was an apology. No more. A few days later, I made a decision. I would no longer accept Vivian's gifts. But instead of quietly returning them or letting the situation fester, I would take action that would send a clear message without sinking to her level. I arranged for a delivery. I packed up the designer jewelry set, the expensive handbags, the spa vouchers, and even the cooking gadgets. I included a letter, one that was clear and unapologetic. The letter read, "Vivian, I appreciate your attempts to make things right, but I don't need your gifts to feel validated. I don't need luxury to know my worth. What I need is respect, and that doesn't come in the form of expensive jewelry or designer clothes. I won't accept these anymore. I'm sorry, but this is where I draw the line. Please understand, I don't need these to feel loved or accepted by Lucas. I need a genuine apology. That's all. Please consider this a step towards creating a better relationship, without the distractions of material things." I made sure to have it delivered directly to her doorstep. The note wasn't cruel, but it was firm. I wasn't going to keep playing this game. It was time she realized that no matter how many gifts she sent, it would never make up for her words. It would never erase the damage she'd done. When Vivian received the package, she was furious. I knew she would be, and I was ready for it. What happened next, though, was unexpected. A few days after the package had arrived, I received a phone call. It was from Lucas. Riley, his voice was soft, almost apologetic. Mom wants to talk. She's upset. I think she's finally realizing how far she went, but she doesn't know how to fix it. I was torn. Part of me wanted to push her away, to tell her I was done with her games. But another part of me wanted to give her the chance to prove that she could be different. I'll talk to her, I said after a pause, my voice steady. But this time, I want the truth. No more games. A few hours later, I found myself sitting at Vivian's house, face to face with the woman who had caused me so much pain. She was sitting across from me, her hands folded in her lap, her face taut with frustration and regret. I don't know what to say, Riley, Vivian began, her voice surprisingly shaky. I realize now that I've done everything wrong. The gifts, the cake. It was all wrong. I didn't know how else to handle it. But I can see now that I've hurt you in ways I never imagined. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I sat there, absorbing her words. This wasn't the Vivian I was used to. She was vulnerable, uncertain, human, in a way I hadn't seen before. I don't want your gifts, I said softly. I want you to accept that I am part of Lucas's life, and I deserve respect. I don't need you to like me, but I need you to stop trying to control everything. She nodded, and for the first time, there was no defensiveness in her posture. She seemed to understand. I've been selfish. I was afraid of losing my son, but I didn't realize I was pushing you both away. I don't want that anymore. The conversation wasn't perfect, but it was real. And in the end, that's what mattered. From that point on, things with Vivian were never completely easy, but they were different. There were no more extravagant gifts, no more cruel comments veiled as jokes. She didn't become my best friend overnight, but she began to respect me in ways she hadn't before. And I, for my part, found that I could finally let go of the weight of resentment. I could forgive her, not because she bought me things, but because she had finally acknowledged her mistakes, and more importantly, she had stopped trying to control me. As for Lucas, our relationship grew even stronger. I no longer felt like I was fighting against something every time I interacted with his family. I had my own voice now, and it was clear that Lucas was fully on my side. I had won not by being cruel or seeking revenge, but by standing firm in my own truth. And in the end, I realized that sometimes, the greatest revenge is simply not letting someone else define you. It wasn't about tearing Vivian down or making her regret her actions. It was about reclaiming my power and choosing to stand up for myself, even when it felt uncomfortable or difficult. In the end, it was the only victory that mattered. One evening, after yet another package arrived at our doorstep, I opened the door to find a massive bouquet of white lilies. The attached note read, "I'm sorry, Riley. I've been hard on you. Please accept this as a gesture of goodwill. Vivian." I stared at the flowers, holding the note in my hands. I wasn't sure how I felt about this. I hadn't seen Vivian in person since the party, and while I was grateful for her attempt to apologize, I knew that actions spoke louder than words, or in this case, gifts. I decided I had to confront her. I wasn't going to keep letting her buy her way into my life. Not when it was clear that all she was really doing was avoiding the real conversation that needed to happen. The next weekend, I called her. I wasn't sure how she'd respond, but I was prepared to have the difficult conversation. "Hello, Riley," her voice came through the phone, tight but polite. "What's going on?" I think we need to talk, I said, trying to sound calm, even though my heart was racing. About everything. There was a pause on the other end. I could practically hear her fidgeting with something. I don't know what you mean. The gifts, I said. They don't fix anything. They're just things. I need more than that from you. I need you to acknowledge how hurtful you were that night. I need you to understand that I don't appreciate being belittled and humiliated in front of my friends and family. There was a long silence. I could feel the tension building, even over the phone. Then, finally, her voice softened, but only slightly. I didn't mean to hurt you, Riley. I thought if I gave you those things, you'd understand that I was trying to make things right. But if you're not happy with them, then I guess I've really messed up. I wanted to scream at her that the gifts weren't the point, but I held myself back. Vivian, I don't need your things. What I need is for you to be honest with me. I need you to admit that what you did at the party was wrong. I need you to tell me you're sorry, not just send me more things. You can't just buy your way out of this. I heard her sigh heavily on the other end. Fine. You want me to say I'm sorry? I'm sorry, okay? I shouldn't have said what I did, and I shouldn't have put that on the cake. But Riley, I didn't know how else to handle it. I've always had a hard time with change. And you were changing everything. You were becoming someone Lucas was really proud of, and I don't know how to be okay with that. Her words were raw. And for the first time, I heard something in her voice that I hadn't before: vulnerability. It wasn't an apology I expected, but it was something. Something more than I'd gotten before. You think I was trying to take Lucas away from you? I asked, my voice softening now that the anger had started to dissolve. I don't know, Riley. I didn't want to lose him. I thought if I could control things, if I could somehow make you feel like you weren't enough, then maybe you'd leave and he'd come back to me. Her voice faltered. I know it sounds crazy. I realize that now. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever gotten from her. I couldn't believe it, honestly. But I also couldn't ignore the fact that she was still talking about her son like he was a prize to be won. I'm not going anywhere, Vivian, I said gently. I love Lucas, and I'm not here to replace you. But I need you to accept that I am his wife, and I deserve respect. I'm trying, Riley. I don't know if I can change overnight, but I'm willing to try. That was the first honest conversation we'd had in years. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The gifts? They still came, of course. But after that conversation, I started to see them less as attempts to buy my forgiveness and more as misguided attempts to bridge a gap that she didn't know how to cross. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that she was only doing it because she didn't know how to apologize the right way. I wanted her to prove that she was sorry, not just through gifts, but through action. I wanted her to show me she was willing to make things right, not just with me, but with herself, too. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, and I wasn't sure if she'd ever truly change. But I also knew I couldn't just let this slide. I wasn't going to be anyone's second choice, and I wasn't going to settle for relationships that made me feel small. The weeks passed after my conversation with Vivian, and while things between us weren't perfect, they had changed. There was still tension, of course, there always would be between me and her, I suspected, but it felt different now. Less like I was walking on eggshells, more like she was actually trying, even if it wasn't entirely the way I had imagined. Her gifts kept coming, though. One day it was a designer scarf. The next, a set of expensive cookware. Lucas didn't seem to mind too much. I think he was relieved that his mother wasn't in full-blown war mode anymore, but I was getting tired of it. The truth was, the material things meant nothing to me anymore. I didn't need her money or her attempts at buying forgiveness. What I needed was something real, something that wasn't wrapped in pretty paper and tied with bows. But it was clear that Vivian didn't know how to offer anything else. A few weeks after that phone call, Lucas and I went to a family gathering at Vivian's house. It wasn't just the three of us, though. His cousins and a few close family friends were there. The gathering was mostly relaxed, until, of course, Vivian presented another lavish gift. This time, it was a set of custom jewelry. I hadn't seen anything like it before: diamonds, sapphires, and emeralds all arranged into an intricate necklace and matching earring set. Everyone was oohing and awing at the gift, but I couldn't help but feel a sinking pit in my stomach. It wasn't the gift that bothered me, it was the gesture behind it. Vivian was still trying to buy her way into my life, into my forgiveness. This wasn't what I wanted. This wasn't what I needed. "Riley, darling," Vivian said sweetly, handing me the box. "I thought you'd like this. Something special for the woman who's now part of our family." I glanced at Lucas, who was standing nearby, looking awkward but supportive. He shot me an apologetic glance. He knew what was going on. But he didn't want to upset his mother again, not after everything that had happened. I took a breath, trying to mask the frustration rising inside of me. "Thank you, Vivian," I said with forced politeness, feeling the weight of the necklace in my hands. It felt heavier than it should have, like it carried the weight of her attempts to control and manipulate. Then, something in me snapped. I had had enough of the superficial gestures, the constant attempts to win me over with material things. As the party carried on, I excused myself and went outside to get some air. Lucas followed me shortly after, finding me standing by the patio, staring out into the garden. "I know it's not ideal," he said, standing next to me. "But she's trying." "Really? You've seen that, right?" I didn't respond immediately. I had always prided myself on being patient, on being understanding. But the truth was, I was getting tired of waiting.